Hello and welcome to the Academy of Powerful Caregivers presented by Kevin Shorter. This is Module 1, The Motivation of a Caregiver. Today's lesson is How Not to Burn Out.
Hello and welcome back to the Academy of Powerful Caregivers. This is Kevin Shorter. The last few lessons we've really looked at how to continue to love and continue to keep on loving even when people are not responding. And really it's hard. We're not seeing the change. And so that's what we're getting to this week is after so much prodding and going forth and continuing on, the real challenge of a caretaker is the challenge of, or the risk of burning out. And so we want to look at how not to burn out. So that would be what we look at this week. And burnout really is the risk that you face when you stop listening to your limitations that you have and just keep on going. You can keep on pressing forward, and then you start running out of energy or source of moving forward, motivation, and you just burn out. And it's a real issue with caregivers. As you're a caregiver, there's a never-ending supply of people who are going to want to feed you all their problems, feed you every need they have for you to fix it, for you to help them, to you to be with them. And so it's just always going to be draining, always going to be pulling out if you don't take a precaution to watch over that. In about 2010, Psychology Today had a report that came out, and it listed the top 10 careers or occupations that have the highest risk of depression. And out of those, the number one was nursing. They had other medical professions. We had social work, teachers. There were healthcare workers. There's all these different people that were falling into this category in the top 10. And it's really people who constantly give of themselves. They actually run the risk of giving out and burning out. And so as we look at this, we want to really make sure that you're taken care of. And if you think like, well, none of that on that list was ministry related. I mean, I'm a believer. I've got this abundant life running out of me. Well, there was a separate report that was done by Creature. I'm not exactly sure how to say his name. But in 2006, he surveyed thousands of pastors and asking a lot of different questions. And he found that, just as some of the numbers that they received, some of the stats, 90% of the pastors surveyed stated they are frequently fatigued and worn out on a weekly or even daily basis. 77% felt they did not have a good marriage. 75% felt that they were unqualified or poorly trained in seminaries, and thus led to them feeling disheartened about their ability or even stressed about what they could do. 71% constantly fight depression. 70% said they have no close friends. And then a separate study by the Schaeffer Institute, that's Francis Schaeffer, of Church Leadership Development, said that 70% of pastors were so stressed that they regularly considered leaving the ministry. So if you think of, okay, well, as a Christian, I'll do better than these other people in my profession. Well, you look at these pastors, and these are the ones who've spent a lifetime of really studying the Bible, studying what God says, their relationship with God, and they're still struggling with burnout and with depression and really fighting to keep it all together. And so, not to say all this to scare anyone, but we need to know that the battle is real, that we can't just go in naively thinking, oh, Jesus is with me, it's all going to be okay. Jesus is with you. You do have the source of everything you need, but you still have to tap into it. And that's really what the Academy of Powerful Caregivers is about, is to give you the tools you need to help you be powerful, not just now and for this next season, but for a lifetime, the longevity of all the work you're doing, and all the caregiving you want to give, that you always have enough and you're always powerful, because that you do have access to that source of that well you can come from. So as we go into this, I want to just recently I saw an article came out that another megachurch pastor was stepping down from the ministry. He started his church 7 years, saw significant growth, a lot of success. No need to mention names or where it is, because it happens enough where it'll be next when you're listening to this, or if you even don't see this for several years down the road, it'll probably still come up another person. And I don't want to assume that's going to be the case, but that's been the trend and just the reality of it. And this particular pastor, says that he basically, as he was stepping down, he said, I feel like I'm not doing well, and I haven't been doing well for some time. And so we think about this, like, how will we go about offering help to him? He's coming, he's saying, I feel tired, I feel broken. What do we say? How will we counsel him? Will we try to encourage him in order to get him to stay the pastor? Would we assume that there's some kind of hidden sin in there? What will we do? How will we offer hope in this situation? The elders of his church, they tried to convince him, and obviously he ended up stepping down. And one of the things that they said as he was stepping down was like, he's graciously offered to help anytime we have questions, and we're definitely going to take him up on that. And in some ways, it sounds great, because we want the pastor to feel like that he's appreciated and cared for. But someone who's struggling and thinks that that I'm really not doing well, and then they get this almost like, we don't know what we're going to do without you. We're going to contact you. We're going to keep you as involved as much as possible. When really, as he's pulling away because he needs rest. He needs to get away. When people are teetering on burnout, what do they need from us? And how do we help in the situation? And it's not just an issue of pastors. If we looked at the Psychology Today, the top 10 of high-risk careers for depression, and that was all in this role of the caregiver, of what we want to be able to do. We want to enter into people's lives and offer hope in their situation. And we need to make sure at the same time we are being taken care of, and we have hope to offer. And it's not just we're getting life by the fact we're seeing change in other people. And sometimes we do that, and it is a reaffirming when we see change in life come into others. But that should not be our source. If our source and our identity is in what we do, then we're actually creating a place where we're very much in danger of burnout. Nurses have to do this ongoing education. This is common in a lot of fields, but nurses have the check off that they have to do to make sure that they're maintaining up to speed on the latest information. One of the courses that they have to do is on burnout and how to keep from burnout. And as we've already looked at, this is highly necessary for them. And one of the things I was looking at, they had a case study. Wanted to look at that with you guys. A simple one. I've kind of readjusted it a little bit. But in this case study, there's this nurse. Her name is Laura, and she does a lot of different things. She works at a long-term care facility. She gives out medication, provides wound care, writes care plans, maintains patient records, and you can imagine there's so much that they're responsible for. So in this particular story, Laura loved her job. She felt challenged. She felt proud of the fact that she was able to take care of all of these duties. But then one day, one of the other assistants in the facility was going to take health leave, maternity leave, and then another one left. And so there were two down, and so she needed to pick up additional roles that's going on in this home, this long-term care. And she did it with ease and grace, and she felt exhausted, but she was proud of the fact that she was able to take in even more work. But over time, when they did not replace those positions, but allowed her to continue to do basically the jobs of three people, she starts being emotionally and spiritually and physically exhausted. And it started taking its toll, where she starts getting frustrated easily with patients and with other coworkers. And then one particularly, she made a mistake with medication, and a superior started coming down on her in publicly in front of the others. And of course, she felt embarrassed by this mistake, but you could see that she was overwhelmed. She was at a point where she wasn't working at her best. But she took that and just started really getting frustrated with herself, starting doubting her ability to be a good nurse, whether she should stay in this profession or not. She started getting upset with the whole system, and that the system was messed up, that we couldn't provide good care because of they're trying to save money on hiring staff, and all these different things are going on. And eventually she does quit. She quits and questions why did she even do this? And so you see the progression of what's going on. She became fatigued, frustrated, irritable, and then when she made the medication error, thankfully in this particular scenario, what it says is that the patient was harmed, but burnout just slowly started to creep in. It was one thing after another. It was being pressed farther than she wanted to go, more farther than she could go, and to the point where she was eventually just broke. The stress level got too strong, and she couldn't take it anymore. WebMD defines caregiver burnout as the state of physical, emotional, and mental exhaustion that may be accompanied by a change of attitude from positive and caring to negative and unconcerned. Burnout can occur when caregivers don't get the help that they need, or when they try to do more than they're able. And that's either physically or even financially. Sometimes caregivers are taking care of others to a degree where they run out of money. My dad is in long-term care right now, and he suffers from dementia. And the first month when he was in, that was $17,000 for the cost of that for 1 month stay, and that was just more than my mom had planned for, and obviously that was pushing her financially as the caregiver beyond what she felt comfortable with. Felt that, and then because the questions are how long am I going to have to provide for my husband, which is a weird tension too. It's like she loves her husband, almost she'll do anything for him, but she also realizes that she doesn't have the money to month after month spend $17,000 for his care. And then what if it was long term? Would she have enough money for herself to take care of herself? So you see that the stresses of everything continues to pile in, and to the point of where you actually the stress level is too high. And a lot of times with caregivers, what happens is, because we want to give care, and say, my mom, she loves her husband, she wants to take care of him, that the idea of taking care of yourself almost seems the word like naughty. It feels wrong. It feels like I'm doing something I shouldn't be doing. By there's people that are hurting. There's people that need my care that I can actually offer. If I take time away, then it seems like I'm misusing my time. But in reality, that could be the best, a lot of times the best thing you can do is to make sure that you're taken care of as the caregiver. Because it's not, negative job performance is not the only thing that's going to pull you away. For the nurse we talked about in that case study, she gave a wrong medication, but that wasn't really the cause of the burnout. It was just an additional factor that played into it. But if we looked at that megachurch pastor and everything looked like it was going well. Now that we don't know the full story, what's going on, but the pressures of continuing to do well can also be burnout. When you see like companies that have a very large rate of growth, and then the pressures of not only to keep up with the organization of everyone and to make sure that everyone's taken care of and you're still moving forward, and then the expectations that in order to continue to do well, you have to do this amazing growth. And so the pressures of that can actually be overwhelming, just the same as if you have a negative experience. burnout is caused by basically taking on more than you can actually carry. It's really, the carrying is not just the workload, but the stress of what comes on with it. So let's look at a biblical example of burnout. And the very common one is Elijah. Elijah was an amazing man of God. He was one of the few people in the Old Testament that walked in miracles regularly. You hear the story. He's, 3 years it didn't rain in Israel because he prayed for it to stop. And then when it wasn't raining, when there was that drought, God led him to a brook that was a little stream of water that allowed him to continue to find his substance. And then he was being fed by ravens that were coming in. And it was like he was getting his needs met miraculously. And then when that water dried up, God moved him to this widow, this poor widow and her son that basically had nothing. And through that interaction, God miraculously made her oil to last for a really, really long time. Well, to never stop. And so he's miraculously being taken care of even now. And then while he's taking care of her, the son dies. And then Elijah comes and prays him, and he comes back to life. So you just see miracle after miracle with Elijah. And then it leads to the point when it's time for the rain to come. He goes and he sets this big challenge with every false prophet in the land, and invited all of Israel to come watch. And they, this wonderful, encouraging story where it's one man against a whole army of false prophets, and then he makes this altar and all the sacrifice, and they try and they couldn't do anything, and he drenches everything with water so that there's no way for the fire to come. But then God comes and burns it all up into every lick of the water is gone. And it's like completely God comes in and intervenes, and the people, their hearts change, and they kill all the false prophets, and then he prays, and the rain starts coming in as a thunderstorm, and then Ahab was there, the king. He was going to go back to Jerusalem and give the report of what happened. And as he was going back in chariot, Elijah, the rain started coming. He actually takes off and runs faster than the chariot all the way back to Jerusalem with this miraculous energy and speed, and reports what he's done. And then Jezebel, the queen, gets mad at him and says, "Surely you will be dead tomorrow." And it's interesting. Elijah runs away and is highly depressed. And it's interesting because they've been trying to kill him the whole 3 years he was brought out on the drought, and they hadn't. And now I don't know if he just had a false idea of what was going to happen. That okay, now that we've seen all these miracles and this happened, that the king and the queen are going to change their mind. Whatever the reason was, he was highly depressed. And he goes off, and God feeds him, gives him some water, and then kind of tells him, all right, I want to meet with you, but it's going to be on this 40-day journey. And it goes off 40 days, and meets, God meets with Elijah up in the mountains, in the cleft of the rock, and passes by in this gentle whisper. And you say, oh, this is a wonderful story. And so what does God say to Elijah? How does he help Elijah overcome his burnout and his depression? Does he say, Elijah, just hang out here, spend like a year or so, and just do what you need to do to get better? And that's what we're going to do. No. Does he say, hey, let's go work some more miracles, and if you get some more miracles, I tell you, you're going to feel better? No. He didn't even give himself, hey, why don't you just hang out? I'll spend some time with you. I'll spend quality time with you. You with the God of the universe, this is what you need. It wasn't. What he did was he sent Elijah back and said, there's a company of prophets I want you to meet, and there's one particular, and Elisha, that you're going to meet up with. And so what he does is, in order to overcome his burnout, his depression, was to give him a relationship and give him someone to spend time with. If you remember from the very beginning, one of the studies is I think 70% of pastors feel like they had no close friends, and if you look at what we do as caregivers, especially pastors, you feel like that you have to have all the answers. You have to be perfect. If anyone found out like something in you that's not sinless, then they might kind of kick you out of the job, and so you feel like you have no one really you can trust and talk to, and that's unfortunate. I understand that that's a real thing, but it's unfortunate because you need people you can share with, people you can trust, and you need to learn how to cultivate them in order to be able to share those thoughts and those feelings so that you're not alone. God said that it's not good for man to be alone in the very beginning. And what did he do? He didn't say, Adam, it's not good for you to be alone. I'm going to walk every day in the afternoon and spend time with you. Sounds like he was already doing that, and it was still not good for man to be alone. So what does he do? He gives man, gives man another person to hang out with, someone like him that he can be known. And it's interesting when they talk about having a relationship and the intimacy. It's like Adam knew Eve, and it was the idea is intimately knowing each other, and that's obviously saved in the marriage relationship. But for even friendships, we could have an intimate knowledge of knowing each other to the deepest level of what's going on in our hearts, and to find that acceptance and love and life in them. And Paul actually knew about this too. He knew. You see this in like 2 Timothy 4. So what happened is Paul had someone who was trying to oppose him. Someone left and kind of valued the world more than him. He's probably in the prison of a Roman prison at the time. And what Paul does, he says, send me Mark because he's useful to me, and send me some friends. And he's acknowledging friends, how he wanted his friends around him, and because he sees that, and for Timothy also to come to him, because the thing is, he realized that he was at a point where burnout was very likely. Maybe not the wording he would use, but he does say that, how God protected him, how God strengthened him. So he's saying, God has been really good to me, but I need you to come. I need you to be here. And God set it up where we need the body of Christ. We need other people. We need relationships because we're set up that way. You also see it with Paul, even in how he relates to all the letters. There's always a list of people he's acknowledging. He's always sending people with the letters. I'm sending along Epaphras or Onesimus or whatever it is he's sending along. There's people that are going along with the letters because to Paul, the relationships are so important. And burnout really if Paul's needs people, you realize that burnout can hit the best of us. Research shows that the best caregivers are actually most susceptible for burnout. And it's because of their detail orientation, their perfectionism. They're wanting to make sure the people they're taking care of are really being taken care of, and they want to see change. It's with that's deep concern and importance that it actually leads them to a risk of burnout. Nursing Link says that because of the realities of the job and the desires of what people want to see accomplished, they don't always match up in those high standards, and that the resulting stress and frustration over time leads to physical and mental burnout and exhaustion. And so we need to figure out how to avoid burnout. And so here's some of the things that I've found from different lists, and I think it'll be helpful for you. The first is find things that you enjoy. And whether it be a hobby or a sport or whatever it may be, find something that you can do that's unrelated to your career, but it's something you enjoy doing. The idea is, if you want to offer life to other people, you need to find what gives life to you. And obviously we go and we find life from the Lord, but He's actually set up the world in such a way we find life from other things, whether through worship, through people, through sports or exercise. And there's a lot of different things, and we need to actually pull from a lot of different activities in order to find the life that is going to satisfy our heart. But as I said, one of those is to spend time with God. And this is not just spend time with God in order to get some kind of material for a Bible study or for a sermon or whatever. This is spending time with God to actually spend time with God. So it's not, some of it could be inductive Bible study. It could be going through a devotional. It could be reading a Christian book. But that shouldn't be all of it. It's not about information. It's about connection. And you want to be connected to the Lord and allow Him to be the source of your life that you get. And I've said this already, but don't allow the things that you do to become who you are. Don't get your identity and your caregiving ability. This is I am the giver. I'm the servant. I'm the whatever. No, you're a child of God. And if you're going to be a powerful caregiver, it can't be your identity. It's got to be just who you are. You can't give life into something if you're trying to make that your life. You give life into it because you have your connection to God, into the world, and being true to who you are, and then you actually can give life into those situations. And number 4 is to remind yourself of the good things God has done for you. I mean, Thanksgiving is really a vehicle of releasing joy and reminding you of God's goodness over you, and the fact that He's done it before, He's going to do it again. Now, having stated this, I realize that for those who are already in depression, finding anything to be thankful for is really hard. So there's a couple of things I want to add at to help you with this idea, and that is to cultivate relationships and know you well. We've hit over this a lot, and we're actually going more into it even the next lesson, is that relationships are what's going to give you the strength that you need in order to keep you motivated and keep you going. So you want to let people into your mind and into your heart. You want them to know you really well, so that when you see them, you're actually seeing the love of God through them, and then you start believing God's ability to take care of you because He has people in your life. And the last thing is have those friends remind you of who God is for you. Like our number 4 was to be thankful of what God's done for you. Well, have your friends that you've made in 5 that you cultivate, and to do number 6 and remind you of those things that you're starting to forget because you're in the pressures of life and you're actually going through the hard times of remembering. Allow them to help you remember and remind you of God's goodness. So in the next chapter, we are going to talk about relationships, because really it's so important. If you want to be a good caregiver, you need to have people in your life. And so we're going to go through that. As we end, always ask God what's a couple things that He wants you to know from this lesson, and allow them to write them down, allow them to come into your heart, and allow them to change how you view yourself and how you view what you're doing. But I have another question. I want you to think through 3 people that you would consider friends, and go ahead and this week call them up and say, hey, I just want to let you know I value your friendship, and think of ways that you can build into that relationship. Maybe use some of the tools we've done before of asking God how He sees them, and maybe share them. It's like, hey, I was just praying for you, and I feel like God says this is, this or this about you, and I can see that too. I really appreciate that in you. And just be an encouragement to them. And just as you're encouraging and being complimentary to them, they're actually going to turn their hearts to more of you, and you can start building better friends. So we'll look into more in that next week, our next lesson, and really appreciate your time. Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this lesson from Kevin Shorter on the Academy of Powerful Caregivers. If you have any questions or comments, please send them to apc@josiahscovenant.com. Be sure to check out the next lesson on how relationships can help you.